Sarah Kuhn here. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. You guys, I am so excited about the podcast this year. I have interviewed so many people, and I think I've already interviewed like 20, and I have like 15 more already scheduled. And there's so many amazing people. First of all, we're talking to a wonderful lady today whose name is Laura. She is a health coach, and we're going to talk about cycle syncing and balancing your hormones, which is a little bit different of a topic for us, but she had a lot of amazing things to say. She's an INFJ, and we spoke about a lot of other things other than health as well, so make sure that you stick around. It's a great interview. But yeah, I've been talking to a lot of other people too. Just last night, I spoke to a self-love coach. I didn't even know such a thing existed, but I'm so glad that it does. I have learned so much about self-love in the past couple of years. Um, and part of our conversation, I was just thinking back to the last 5 or 6 years and how much has changed for me. And I'm so excited about that. It's kind of like you put all of the little pieces together, and then at some point, everything just clicks. Um, I hope you feel that way too, because because it seems like that happens a lot for me in a lot of different areas, not just with self-love, but with a lot of other things too. It happens a lot with my business, with social media. It happened to me a lot in school too, when I was in college and when I was in high school. So, so yeah, we talked a lot about self-love. I asked her a lot of questions that you guys ask me, and you'll hear that interview in a couple of weeks. So I wanted to get back to self-love though. I've been thinking so much about it. It's something that is really near and dear to my heart because it really affects me. For the longest time, I thought that I was just born without self-love. I thought some people were, and that some people just didn't know how to do it. Like maybe there was some part of my brain that was missing, or somehow I was deformed somehow. I didn't really know. I just knew that the way that people spoke about self-love, that I didn't feel that. And I've struggled with self-confidence for as long as I can remember. Um, so many times I've sat with my parents, with teachers, with even with bosses, and they would say things to me like, "Well, you just need to have more self-confidence." And I would say, "Yeah, I understand that's the problem. How do I get that?" And every single one of them would give me this confused look and be like, I don't know. I've never had that problem before. It doesn't affect me." So it left me very frustrated and very lost because I knew that I had a problem, but I didn't know where it came from and I didn't know how to fix it. And it really feels like the past couple of years, I've really been putting all of those pieces together and everything's finally clicking now. And I'm just so excited about it that I really want to share it with everybody. it's, it's kind of like my personality type. Once I learn about something like that, I really dive into it and want to know all of the things. And then it's like, okay, I can't just have this information benefit me. It needs to benefit everybody else as well. So I have decided that I'm going to put together a course on self-love. And I'm going to start with a masterclass. So anybody who wants to be a part of the masterclass can. It's going to be free. I don't have all the details worked out, but I just wanted to let you know that it's coming. So heads up. There is a link in the show notes for you to sign up for it if you're interested in it, if you want to be a part of it. Make sure that you sign up. It's just your name and your email address, and then make sure that you check your email and your spam folder too, because sometimes my emails get stuck in there. So make sure that you're looking for those. And yeah, I really, really hope that you will be a part of it, even if it's something that you think that you don't need, because there's so much that we can learn and it impacts so many different areas of our life. It's not just looking in the mirror and saying, okay, I like what I see. It impacts your job. It impacts your ability to get a job, the jobs that you apply for. It impacts the type of career that you have and the decisions that you make as far as wanting to start your own business, or if you want to start a side hustle, or I mean, it even comes down to taking pictures of yourself. When I look at myself for the past 15, 20 years, there aren't really a lot of pictures of me. And a lot of that has to do with not wanting to be seen, which comes back to self-love. You'll see that on my social media feed as well. You see it on Instagram. There are no pictures of me. I have worked professionally in digital marketing for about 10 years. And the first thing that I tell people is you need to humanize your brand, which means your face needs to be everywhere. People need to see you. You need to have professional pictures on your website. You need to be posting selfies and videos all the time. You need to be on Facebook Live. You need to be on Instagram Live. And I work with clients coaching them about social media and digital marketing. And, you know, that's the first thing that I tell them. And they always come back at me with, well, your face isn't on your social media. And I'm like, yeah, it's not. I know it needs to be. It really does need to be. I know it makes a huge difference because I've seen such a huge difference already this year with just doing the podcast episodes on video. And by the way, just in case you don't know, they're on YouTube. So you can go to youtube.com/The Quiet Ones Podcast. You can also go to youtube.com/INFJwoman. But it makes such a huge difference to have your face out there for people to be able to see you. And all of that comes back to self-love. It comes back to, I don't like the way that I look, and I don't want pictures of me. I don't want videos of me. And like I said, it's something that I'm working through, and it's something that I'm getting more comfortable with. And I want to be able to share that with anybody who needs to hear that, because it just makes such a huge difference, honestly. And especially if you want to write, if you want to start a blog, if you want to start an Instagram account, whatever it is that you want to do, this can help you. And not only in business, it will help you in your relationships as well. It'll help you in your friendships, in your relationship with your family, and in your relationship with your significant other. Or if you're single, it will help you with dating as well. So there's a lot of different aspects that it impacts, pretty much everything, honestly. So definitely check it out. The masterclass, like I said, will be free. I don't even know what it's going to be titled yet. I'm still in the planning stages and trying to put everything together. But I will let you know in the next couple of weeks, if not next week. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to tell you about is the INFJ community. You guys, if you haven't joined the community yet, you really need to join it. It's this completely amazing place. It's totally free. It's a lot like Facebook, but it's way better than Facebook because you don't have to deal with an algorithm and you don't have to deal with ads. And the majority of the people on there, like 99% of them, are INFJs. And we have these amazing conversations about a lot of things that most INFJs don't get to talk about, that things that I wouldn't talk about with my friends because they just don't understand. So I asked some people who are already in the community what they think about it and how they would describe it to other people. And I wanted to read to you a few things that they said. So the first one says, I never expected to feel so understood, even with those crazy thoughts and ideas. I think that everyone who identifies as an INFJ should experience being in this community. Yes, I completely agree. You definitely should. Okay, the next one says, it's really awesome to meet people who understand you. It's like the happy place where we wanted to be or hide in when we were children. I agree. It's definitely like that too. The next one says, it feels very comforting to find people who can relate to our life experiences. To find others who understand without judgment is such a warm embrace. It really is. That understanding and the whole part about not being judged, it's completely amazing. Okay, one last one. It feels like a real home when I can share my thoughts and feelings, and makes me realize that I'm not alone and feeling like a warm welcome. You guys, I really think that you need to be a part of this. Like I said, it's completely free. You can go to infjcommunity.com, and there's also a link in the show notes that will take you directly into the community. Yes, definitely check it out. Definitely. Okay, so let's get to our guest. Our guest today is Laura Charelle. She is the owner of a company called Balanced Bombshells, which offers high performance wellness coaching to women who are striving to achieve their goals. She's going to tell us all about cycle syncing, which is balancing your hormones, which makes a huge difference in your life. I will tell you about my experience with it after the interview, but I'll tell you right now, it does really make a huge difference, honestly. And just one more reminder, you can watch the video interview on YouTube at youtube.com/The Quiet Ones podcast. All right, so tell me, how did you find out that you're INFJ?
I found out after I graduated college when I took the Myers-Briggs test, and I really wish that if I could have taken that like in middle or high school or even in college, I think it would have helped a lot. Um, and then once I read the profile, I was like, this makes so much sense to why I do what I do.
Right. So how did it change your life? Was there anything that really changed once you figured that out?
I think more of like an emotional component is what I felt. I felt more understanding of myself. Like I had to learn, like growing up, I learned really quick that it was more socially acceptable to be extroverted. So like I think I overcompensated in a lot of situations trying to be extroverted, but then didn't understand why I would feel so exhausted when I would get home or I would be away from people. And it explained a lot of like why I would go to parties with friends and I would leave after like 2 hours and everyone would stay for like six. Um, so that just made so much sense. And then in college, like at first I thought like I was a loner, but I would like go and eat like breakfast and lunch by myself, no problem. And I just would always look around campus and I'm like, everyone's always in like their groups. Is like, am I just not cool enough? Like, am I just, not social enough? And then I just could never I was never meant to be like in a huge group. Like I actually found them very overwhelming. So that's why I would leave a party after an hour or two. So I think that just helped kind of emotionally kind of have that release of just like, oh, it's okay to be this way. It's okay to go to a party for an hour or two and leave and just know that you've had your fill of socializing and like that's it. Um, and just learning how to give yourself that rest period, whereas I don't think I did that before, which would make me feel more exhausted and overwhelmed.
Yeah. I felt the same way when I was in school, and it got to the point where I thought, okay, I'm just not meant to fit in, so I'm just going to do things to make myself stand out. And
Mhm.
not like I want to be the center of attention, but rather than walking into the lunchroom and saying, I'm going to find somebody to sit with, I'm just like, no, I'm going to sit at the far table away from everybody else and
Yeah.
hope that nobody comes over to me. And even now, it's kind of the same. I go to lunch at a different time than everybody else in our office does.
Yeah.
And I always leave the building just to avoid all of the people in the office because
Yeah.
it's like I need some time in the middle of the day to recharge.
Yeah. I always did a walk. So once I got into the working world, I would take a walk every day at lunch. And that really helped me just kind of like reset. And the days I couldn't walk and I would just be in an office all day, I would just be really tired going home. Um, but I was always sociable. So like I at least teaching myself how to be extroverted and like connect with people. I always was better on like a smaller scale of friends, like a small group of friends versus like a huge one. Um, but I always had to take time away. So like sleepovers as a kid was really hard because you don't ever get that space to kind of recharge.
Right.
Um, and then just even now, so like I teach a concept in women's health called cycle syncing, where you pair your like food and your lifestyle and your social calendar, your work activities to where you are in your cycle. And so I've taken the Myers-Briggs test at like different parts of my cycle. So the first half of my cycle, I'll sometimes come out as an ENFJ because I'm going to be more extroverted in the first part of my cycle. And then the second part, I'm always INFJ when we're naturally more reflective. We naturally want to be more introspective. So it's like really fascinating to see that even my cycle can change, like your energy levels change, which then kind of can dictate your sociability as well.
Sure. Yeah. I never really thought about it that way, but I'd never heard of that term cycle syncing until you reached out to me. And I was so interested to learn about it. I even watched your masterclass and I was just really in awe of how much can change. And I am a big believer that food is a big healer. And I don't even know the right way to say it, that it can dictate a lot of how you feel. And I know that there's a lot of people that believe in healing all different kinds of things, even as far as cancer,
Yeah.
um, with what you eat, which I'm a huge believer in that. And I never really connected it to your cycle, though I have felt that at certain times because I've
Mhm.
experimented a little bit with intermittent fasting because I know that, a lot of people do these days.
Yeah.
And I noticed, at least in that respect, that it does make a difference for me when I'm fasting more as opposed to when I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, honestly can't believe how much our cycle dictates everything. Like it really controls our thoughts, our mood, our emotions. And if our hormones are off, then we're going to be feeling more tired. We're going to be feeling more insecure about ourselves. We're not going to be feeling as sociable. So it was just, to me, it was even taking your personality type and kind of like taking things to a next level, because I always plummeted right before and during my period, especially during really busy times at work. So I did a lot of event planning. So as an introverted person, you can understand that event planning was tough during crunch time. So like on one side, I really liked it because at the event, I didn't have to sit and do small talk with people, which I know INFJs can't stand. We want to get down to like the root of it. We don't want to do small talk. I just want to talk to you about your like hopes and dreams in life.
Sure.
Um, so I got to be able to host, which means that you get to talk to people for like 2 minutes and be like, oh, once you're done with the conversation, you could be like, oh, I have to go check on something. And then you can just leave. So like that was super helpful. But being around people for such an extended period of time, I never had that time to like step away. So like hormonally, it made my mood suffer. It made my energy suffer. I would give everything I could to my job, but when I came home, I wasn't seeing friends. Like I would go months without planning something with friends because I just couldn't handle being around people anymore. So then starting my own business and working for myself, my health actually improved so much because I didn't have to be around people if I didn't want to be. So it really helped like create some separation where you can hang out with people and see them when you want, and then do your own thing and kind of dive into your own creative work as well. Um, which health wise for me was really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really interested to learn about it too because I know that my hormones are off for like in a big way because I have endometriosis. And I was only diagnosed just a couple of years ago, but I've really had the symptoms for as long as I can remember.
Hmm.
And one of the big things for me was when you go to the doctor and you say, listen, I have all of these problems, and they're like, oh, that's normal,
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
and,
Yep.
and you're like, are you sure it's normal? And
Yeah. It's
the
not
first
normal.
few years, it's like, oh, okay, it's probably
Yeah.
just me. Maybe I'm being dramatic. Maybe, maybe everybody deals with that and I just can't. And then, as I got older, I started talking to some friends and they're like, no, that's not normal. Like, I don't have that problem,
Mhm.
or I talked to some other ones and they're like, oh yeah, I have endometriosis or I have PCOS. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's exactly what I have. And I'm like, why did nobody ever tell me this before? This is,
Yeah, no one talks about it. And I mean, it's a smaller percentage. So like I was on the pill for like 9 years and didn't understand that I never should have been on it. Um, for me, one of my hormone issues after I got off the pill was struggling with low progesterone, and the doctors never caught it. They never talked to me about it. The pill caused it. My stressful life caused it. But it made me suffer from something called PMDD, which is like premenstrual dysfunctional disorder, and only about 5% of women struggle with that. So I got more of like the bloating before and during my period and emotional instability. So that's what I struggled the most with. Whereas like for PMS, 90% of women deal with that. And like we just think, yeah, it's normal. And like, yes, every woman struggles with her hormones, but you don't have to. So like now I don't even get PMS symptoms. So not only was I able to get rid of PMDD, but I got rid of PMS. So sometimes when I'm at parties, people will be like, what? Like they don't even know that it's possible. So it's like you absolutely can calm your body down from the inside out. Food is a huge component. Taking time, especially with like being an INFJ woman, like taking space away from people helped me so much to be able to actually calm my stress hormones that were raging and then can create more inflammation and anxiety in the body. So I'm glad that you were open to talk to people too and like kind of know I don't think this is right. And I have a hard time with doctors now too because they were just like, oh, it's normal, or like, why don't we put you back on the pill? And I was like, well, last visit you said I never should have been on it, so I'm confused on why you try to push it right now. So I'm good on the pill.
One of the things that really has created a lot of mistrust for me is I went to see one doctor and he said, you have all the symptoms of endometriosis. The only way that we can really diagnose you is if we do surgery, and we're not going to do that because it's not necessary. I'm just telling you that you have it based on what you're telling me. And I'm like, okay, that works for me. The next doctor I go to says, you don't know unless you have surgery, so let's schedule surgery. And I'm like, I don't need surgery.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have surgery. And the next one says, well, you might have it. It might just be normal. And I'm like, how can you go to 3 doctors within 3 years and them all say such varying things?
Yeah.
I mean, and they don't ask a lot of questions. They don't, dig too deep. It's just like this surface level thing. And then it's like, okay, here's what we can do. We can do surgery, or you can have 3 different kinds of birth control. And I'm like, I don't want to take birth control.
Yeah. It makes you feel like crap.
Yeah.
Like I've talked to so many women who are like, so it all depends. Like everyone's hormones are different. Some women can feel really great on the pill and not have any symptoms. Other women like us, it causes more hormonal problems. Like I got debilitating migraines on the pill, like excruciating migraines, like so terrible. And I've heard of other women, the pill caused endometriosis in their body. So it's like, or PCOS, like it's just crazy. And I'm not against the Western medicine. I just feel like a lot of people today should consider partnering with a health coach to be able to help advocate when you're in the doctor, because I really do believe in medicine, but I also believe in holistic care. Right. And every woman kind of going down that path and really understanding the products we put on our bodies. A lot of these have chemicals that mimic hormones in the body and actually create a lot of hormone problems because they're showed up as basically fake hormones that our body can't tell the difference. Yeah. So it's just, you have to definitely know what you're dealing with and how to advocate. And, did they tell you like actionable things you could do to like kind of release the inflammation?
See, that's one of the things too, is when you go to the doctor, and like you said, I'm not against Western medicine either, because I think that, there is a place for it, especially when you're talking about things like antibiotics and things. But when you go to the doctor, they have their prescription pad and that's what they're telling you about. And a lot of times they don't tell you, hey, you can do some other things for that. Things like turmeric and apple cider vinegar and things like that. They never bring that up. They never say, what are you eating?
Correct. Yeah, for sure. They never ask. And that's usually like the first thing I'll do with a client is we walk through what her daily diet is. And then like, I know based off her symptoms and when she's experiencing them throughout the month of what foods could be causing some sensitivity that can increase inflammation. So it took me years to figure out that I had a sensitivity to gluten, dairy, and soy. So those caused a lot of inflammation in my body. And until I could address that and cut them out, emotionally, I didn't feel good. Like energy wise, I didn't feel good. And they was just causing so much inflammation. So then every time my period would come, things would be 10 times worse. But I have friends who can eat gluten, no problem, or they're sitting there having wine and cheese and their skin is beautiful. And like, they have no acne and no issues, where I'm like, that's just not my life path. And I can't be jealous about it. I can admire it in other people. And I just need to be okay with like, this is where my body's at. It's cool. We're just going to support it a little differently. And I wonder too, I haven't talked to as many INFJ women as you, but I feel like we're a pretty sensitive group. So I'm very sensitive within my body, and I'm just wondering if other INFJ women find the same thing, that they're actually very sensitive to a lot of things internally.
I think I think that it's true. I mean, it's definitely true for me. I know that I try to hide a lot of that.
Hmm.
And even when it comes to things like, I also have depression and anxiety,
Hmm.
which I know can be affected by what you eat as well.
Hmm.
But even those types of things, I don't want to show.
Right.
So there's a lot that I just like to keep locked up. And I think a lot of that comes from being so sensitive to things and being so affected, because I'm highly sensitive as well and an empath. So it's just, it's, it's kind of this amazing combination that has a lot of benefits, but then it also has a lot of things that
Yeah.
are challenging as
Yeah. And
well.
I feel like it comes on the health side of that, like empath and like highly sensitive person. And it takes a lot of, I think, mindset work to be able to separate yourself from like other people and situations. When I worked in an office, like I used to have to do energy clearing meditations, or like energy protection, where you kind of like imagine a white bubble, or you're in like a like lit up circle or something. So basically you like consciously think like all of their negative energy is going to like repel off of it, and I'm not going to soak in their energy. And like that would help. But then I got so exhausted of trying to like prepare myself to be around people. So like mindset wise, I feel like it can just take such a toll, and you have to really strengthen that mindset. But I
It,
do know, like, yeah, depression and anxiety is very inflammation based. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's tied to your endometriosis as well.
it's the whole sensitive thing has gotten worse for me as I've gotten older.
Hmm.
When I was in my late teens and early 20s, I worked in retail for 6 or 8 years. And I mean, I worked at Walmart during Christmas time.
Oh
So
my
talk about
God.
information overload.
Yeah. I used to work at a supermarket, and like, yeah, it's a lot.
I don't think I could handle that now,
Yeah.
honestly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot different, and I don't know if it's just because I've gotten more sensitive as I've gotten older, or because I know what that is going into it
I
now.
think it's because you know, and you have a lower tolerance. Like, I feel like once you kind of know who you are and how you need to be in life, like, you really set a lot of boundaries, and you don't want to allow things in that are, are going to make you feel lower energy or less than. And it's just, yeah, it can be really hard. But at least, like, I feel like part of it is just recognizing it and like shining light on what the issue is, so then you can choose differently.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So I want to get back to cycle syncing, and
Hmm.
I was wondering if you would walk us through each one of the 4 steps, because I learned a lot in your master class,
Okay.
and
Yeah, there's
I'm
a
still
lot.
trying to process everything that I
Yeah.
learned.
And so I always call it a practice. So like, just like you're going to practice yoga, just like you're going to practice meditation, you're going to practice your cycle, because like how we feel. So for the women who don't know, we have 4 phases of our cycle, and our body has to basically click through each of the phases for our hormones to reset. So like, that's how a woman's hormones reset, compared to a man, where his hormones reset on a 24-hour cycle. So like every day his hormones resetting. So where it gets, I think, a little confusing for women, and I think why we're so misunderstood, is each of our cycle lengths can then be different. So like, the average cycle length is anywhere between 21 and 35 days. So like mine, used to be like 33 days. And as I was balancing my hormones, it went down to like 28, 29 days, where some women might be 26. So like, whatever your cycle length is, your body's then going to take that many days to reset. So any sort of food changes, any sort of like, um, fitness changes you make, your body has to go through an entire cycle to see a slight improvement. So I know women get discouraged when they're like trying to lose weight, and they're like, why is it then taking me, why don't I see results in like 4 weeks of healthy eating? And it's like, because your hormones had to go through quite a bit to reset, and you only get that slight improvement. So then when you're diligent with your habits for month 2, at the end of month 2, you'll notice another slight improvement. And then things start compounding on top of each other. So if, let's say, your goal was weight loss, you'd finally start seeing the results later. And I always have to remind women, it can take like 8 to 12 weeks before you actually see the results of your habits. But I think too, and I'll go through each of these phases, really just understanding that your body's going to be a slow process, and like it can be you really want your healthy habits to be a lifestyle, not something you go to as like, I've tried everything else. I'm going to try it for 2 weeks. And like, that could be why people don't stick to things.
Right.
But the first day of our cycle starts the day our period starts. So that's like day 1. So every time you have your period, you're on day 1 of your cycle. And so that is what we know of as our menstrual phase. And I think I feel like all women would know that. And that can last anywhere between 3 to 7 days, depending on how long someone's period is. And then from there, we move into our follicular phase, which is a 7 to 10 day period. And so most women here will notice that as they go through that week, their energy starts increasing. So like we can feel lower energy during our menstrual week, which is a very natural thing. And it's a time for us to actually be more introspective. If you remember from any sort of like ancient, I don't think I learned this in school, but like ancient history, they used to have what was called red tents, where women would go into these tents and menstruate together. And they would basically take time away from their daily activities. They would connect with other women. They would honor what their bodies needed and really take that space for themselves, where like obviously in modern day life, we don't have that, but there can be ways that you can carve out that space so you can kind of just come into yourself. And I have noticed the cycles that I have really made sure to honor my body and really listen to my emotions and how I'm feeling and what I need. I have a calmer and happier period versus trying to kind of go against how you're feeling, like trying to be doing a super tough workout or like working 12 hours a day without a rest. Like you're going to feel physically much more tired. So it's very natural. So then in the follicular phase, our hormone levels start rising, which means our energy also starts increasing. So I feel like that's good to know too, because I used to try to, I didn't understand from week to week why I would feel more tired than the next. So I'd always like try to get back to the week where I felt more energy, where I would be having more caffeine, I would be having more sugar, I would be, doing all these things to try and increase my energy as a quick fix without really realizing that my body was never going to get there. And so like that was a huge growth moment for me. So then your energy starts increasing. And then from there, we go into our ovulation phase, which is about 3 to 5 days. And most women know of this phase as the time of the month in which we can get pregnant. So our energy actually peaks here because estrogen, one of our hormones, it's a very stimulating hormone, and it peaks and our energy is like through the roof. So especially being an introverted person, this is probably when you're going to actually really want to be social. You're going to want to connect with people. So I always tell women, like, plan parties. And like, if you only go for 2 hours, that's cool, but you're going to get your social fill. And then from ovulation, we shift into our luteal phase, which is 10 to 14 days. And I like to break this up into 2 weeks. It just seems so much easier to remember. So the first week I've found that like energy wise, you're very similar to ovulation. So you might still be feeling a little bit more social, very, excited to go and work out or, go out, be out and about. And then the second part is what most women know of as our like PMS week. So it's a week before your period. And that's really when women start showcasing a lot of hormonal symptoms. So your hormone levels are actually starting to decline to prepare for your period. And a lot of women have a hard time with those hormonal shifts. So like more women will report anxiety, depression, low level thinking, the bloating, acne. Like that's really when the physical and emotional symptoms will show up. So it's really, you can't like spot treat your cycle. Like you can't show up and you're like, I'm just going to treat my body well for 1 week and I'm going to be good. I'm going to balance my hormones. You have to really show up for yourself every single week to be able to see that those hormonal symptoms subside, which I feel like some women appreciate, some women get mad about, but it's like, we're women, like this is how our bodies are designed. And like,
Right.
the more we can like lean into it and like just accept how we are, that's when we can show up and like make the changes that we want. Like we're not men, we shouldn't be compared to them. Our bodies are so different. And I think one of the most fascinating pieces I learned about women's health was how much medical studies from like metabolism, food, fitness, all of these, like those medical studies are done mostly on men. And then we're getting the results and being like, oh, this is what you should do. And so a lot of women are failing at their metabolism, weight loss, building lean muscle, because all these like claims are more for the male body, and like our bodies are so different. So like we really do need to support ourselves differently. So
That's so crazy that they do
yeah.
that. I mean, it's 2020. Like
Yeah.
they shouldn't do that. That's like comparing us to rats, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Our
Well,
bodies don't work
another
the
one,
same way.
another big one was like the pharmaceutical companies would do testing of like new drugs, and they would be like, oh, okay, here's what we found from our results. And so they'd give men that dosage and they'd give women like the same dosage. And women were coming back in the doctor's office having all these problems. And they were like, oh, oops, women were supposed to get half the dose. And we we're like, what? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
that's a big difference.
yeah. Like we process caffeine at a slower rate and alcohol at a slower rate. So like if you were going to drink like tit for tat for a man, his body can wake up, reset the next day where you still feel like drunk and hungover. Like, so it's I think just really women coming to understand their bodies and owning the fact that we're women. And I feel like, a lot of in our work society today, we try to keep up with the boys, and it's like, I don't even want to. I'm going to use my gifts and I'm going to show up as I am and use my feminine ways and know that there's power in that, and not ever try to be like a man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. With the way that I struggle during my period, I think every single month, like, man, women should get like 12 extra days off of work a
Yeah.
year just for that first day.
Some countries are instituting menstrual leave, like 1 to 3 days every single month for women to take off if they need to support their bodies a little differently. So
Yeah,
like I know Italy does it.
yeah, and you can just put it right in there with sick time, so I don't have
Yeah.
to tell you that's what's going on. But I
Yeah.
just say, hey, I'm sick.
Because
I can
I
work
was
from home.
taking those days anyway. That's when I would get like the most hormonal headaches or the most severe cramps. Like that was when I really just needed to listen to my body. And it's like, she doesn't want to move right now. So like, so I you can find other ways to like counteract it. So I found that like I used to get really bad menstrual cramps. And now thankfully don't. So menstrual cramps are very like inflammation based. And then we can get too much blood stagnation in the uterus. So it has a lot to do with blood flow.
Mhm.
So every morning when I know my period would come, I would force myself to go out for a run. And like, yeah, 90% of the time I did not want to do that, but I would just do like a short run, like 20 to 30 minutes. And I would come back and it would help me so much for the rest of the day. Cause you're getting the blood flowing. So even if you're doing jumping jacks in your house or like dancing in your living room, the blood flow can actually help ease your menstrual cramps, which I just thought was fascinating. Like, why couldn't my doctor have told me that? And like, it just would have changed a lot.
I've read that exercise helps, although I can't say that that I've experienced that, because usually during that time I'm like, I'm not even gonna move. Like,
Yeah.
where's the Advil? And I have gotten to the point where I take so much Advil that the doctor's like, what's wrong? Like, there's something wrong with your liver. What's going on? What are you
Yeah.
taking? Because you told me you weren't taking anything. And I'm like, no, it's just Advil. And they're like, how much do you take? So
So you can do so I do like two things. One is I make a beet smoothie a few days before my period. So
I
like,
know you were talking about that, and
yeah,
I was agreeing with you the whole time in the master class, because I'm like, I cannot stand beets.
I
Like,
can't
it's
stand
the
them.
worst
I
thing in the
hate
whole
them.
entire world.
But if you put it in a smoothie, I swear to you, you don't taste it. It's especially if you put like cinnamon or some fruit in there, like you're just not going to taste it. But I am fascinated to how much having beets like 3 to 4 days before my period and maybe the first day or two has made a difference. Like literally mind blown of like beets. So they promote more blood circulation in our body and it goes to the uterus, which can actually help clear up any of that stagnation. Another thing you can do, there's a lot of studies out that a woman's multivitamin doesn't have enough zinc for women who experience menstrual cramps. So zinc is a powerful anti-inflammatory. So I'll start like 3 days before my period, I'll start taking like a 30 milligram tablet of zinc. And that actually has really been powerful in alleviating menstrual cramps. Which I just find fascinating. Like there's all this research out there, but nobody is sharing and talking about it where we can actually like change how our bodies are.
Yeah.
And then like
Well,
the first day or two of my period, I'll take 1 to 3 tablets of zinc. And if I then need ibuprofen, I can take that. But then like your liver might not take as much of a hit.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely going to try that for sure.
Yeah.
I was surprised by how much vitamin B complex helps me,
Yeah, for sure.
especially with anxiety. Like I'm a whole
Hmm.
different person when I take it.
Yeah,
And
same here.
every time I've been to the doctor, nobody's ever told me that. Nobody's even
Yep.
suggested it.
Yeah.
And then things like I have problems sleeping. So I take melatonin, and I
Hmm.
just started maybe a month ago taking, I'm probably going to say it wrong. I think it's valerian root.
Hmm.
It's
Oh yeah,
the
you
most,
it's like found in tea.
yeah, it's the most amazing thing. You take it and you
Yeah.
just go right to sleep. And I'm like, what, like, why didn't
Yeah.
you ever tell me this?
You might like magnesium too. Magnesium is like very relaxing to the body and kind of can just like calm you down at night. And it helps with inflammation too. Like it just kind of relaxes the body instead of feeling so tight.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely noticed like vitamin B6 for me helped a lot with PMS, and then vitamin D. So this also comes back to food. So like our bodies are not just what we eat, it's what we actually absorb. So like if you have a lot of like inflammation, your body might not be able to absorb the healthy nutrients that you're eating. So it would make sense you might need to supplement with some additional vitamins to be able to feel like sane and calm and happy.
Right.
Whereas some people who don't have that, or who aren't as prone to inflammation as you or I would be, they're absorbing the vitamins that they're eating. So they might then not need to supplement with them. So it's like really comes down to knowing your body. And because I'll take quite a bit of vitamin D, and my husband's like, why are you doing that? Like we live in San Diego. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, I have tested not taking it, and I'm a different person. Same with B6. And I was like, these two, like, nope, I hear you, but I'm going to listen to myself. I'm going to listen to the research I've done, and I'm going to honor that because I know you know your body better than anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it definitely matters when you're on a different diet. I'm a vegetarian, and I've always been a vegetarian for my whole life. And nobody ever told me, hey, you might need B complex because you may not be getting enough
Yeah.
of it. They always
Yeah.
say that for people who are vegan. And I've gone back and forth between being vegan, but I'm not right now. But nobody
It's
ever
a tough
said,
diet. Yeah.
yeah.
It's tough.
And I know that people that are on other diets, like you said, that you're gluten free, and there's a lot of people that are on different kinds of diets like that make a huge difference too.
Yeah. I've tried, so I feel like I've tried like every diet just because I always love testing things and like seeing the benefits. So like
Right.
I did vegan for like 4 months, and it was really hard. And then that same year I went vegetarian for 8 months, but I didn't know I was supposed to be gluten free at that time. So like I didn't understand why it wasn't fully working. Then I've done paleo, which helped a lot for me personally. It's an anti-inflammatory diet. So like that helped a lot. But there's so many times too where if I did paleo for like too long, it was like too much of a low carb diet. So like that energetically like didn't always work. So I really try to go for more of like the moderate approach, like doing a lot of plant-based stuff, eating meat on like basically you're supposed to have meat as like a side dish. And I feel like especially from like the paleo side, it's like they're loading up the meat products, which is really hard on digestion. Um, and just really making sure that your body has like what it needs. And so vegetarian for me, I always respect the diet, but my energy tanks, and probably because of the lack of B vitamins.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It makes a huge difference, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's say that we're completely sold on this, and I know that we've talked a little bit about a little things that we can do. Where do we start if we want to get started doing the whole thing, going completely syncing everything up so that we feel better all the time rather than just, you know, a little
A
bit.
few weeks.
Yes.
I always have women start tracking their cycle. So like I never tracked my cycle until I started cycle syncing. I never knew how long my cycle was. At the time it was actually like 40 to 43 days, which was abnormal. And I had no idea. So like that's eye opening. So you can either track it on your calendar of just marking it like, hey, this is when my period was, and just here's how many days it was. But I really like the app Clue, like CLUE, like the game. And it's a monthly cycle tracker that, especially if you start balancing your hormones, you might notice that your cycle shifts a little bit. And this app was the one that would update the most. So other ones that I was testing, they wouldn't like update of the fact that my cycle went down to like 33 days or 30 days. So it was constantly putting me on like whatever I first registered at, which I thought sucked. Like I was like, that's not helpful.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Clue updates immediately. And then if you're going to be cycle tracking, like you'll get notifications to like the front of your phone when like your ovulation is coming up. It'll basically say like, this is your fertile window. So like most people will use it like if they're trying to have a baby, but if you're not, you can also use it to like avoid your partner at that time. So I appreciated the quick text message, so then you don't have to think about it as much.
Right.
And then it'll also send you a notification of when your period's coming. So like I would get that notification. I was like, cool, time to make a beet smoothie. Like, you know, just starting to like sync up with your cycle. I also have women keep a cycle sync journal, because you don't want to compare your life from like week to week. So you don't want to be like, hey, last week I felt this way, this week I'm feeling like this. You want to compare cycle phase to cycle phase. And that's when you can start finding the patterns within your thought, mood, symptoms. And that is going to be really powerful information. So you compare menstrual phase to menstrual phase, ovulation phase to ovulation phase, and you're going to be amazed at like how similar those phases are to each other. And you can then start predicting how you're going to be feeling, what kind of foods you might feel like, what kind of workouts you might want to do, what kind of social activities you're going to want to do. And then you can start planning your life accordingly. And it's just amazing, just like the sense of overwhelm I think it takes out of our lives. And it just feels like, even when you said like, oh, I kind of noticed some of this stuff, it's going to become so intuitive, and you're going to be like, wow, I actually already knew a lot of this about myself, but I never paid attention to it because no one ever told me I could do that. You know, like we don't know it's possible. So
Yes. Or that you should do it.
yeah. So there is a note to say with this too, because like you're off the pill, I'm not on the pill. Cycle syncing is technically a natural way to balance hormones. So if you're on the pill, if you're on the IUD, you actually mask ovulation with these birth controls. Like that's what it does. It hinders ovulation so that you then can't get pregnant. But then you actually don't click into the phases the same way. So I've noticed a lot of women when they're on the pill or the IUD, they say that their energy feels like muffled. So like they don't get this spike of energy that you or I would get during ovulation. Some women still track their cycles even though they're on the pill, but I don't think you're going to feel the same way as someone who's off it, because those devices are actually like masking a lot of your hormones. So you're just not gonna, like what I'm saying, if you're on the pill or IUD, you're gonna be like, oh, I don't know what that is. It's because you're on the pill and the IUD.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But it's good to know that there's an option out there, because I feel like the doctors always push the pill or the IUD and they're like, oh, this is going to help you balance your hormones. No, it masks your hormones, tunes you out of your body. And like, there is a natural way to actually support your body, and you can do it by syncing everything to your cycle.
Sure, sure. So you mentioned that you're a health coach. So how do you help people with this?
Oh man, yeah. So people come to me
Big
for a
question.
variety of reasons. Usually it's hormonal. They're always looking for something. They're looking for more energy. They're looking to lose weight. They're looking to get rid of PMS. I work with some athletes too who want to improve their like endurance and their fitness performance. And it's all very hormonal related. So you can actually like hack the body to get it to do what you want. So once I know what someone's goal is and what their daily lifestyle is like, what their preferences are, that's when I can help them match their habits to their cycle so they can actually get the results that they're looking for. And I usually work with women in like 3-month packages because I need 2 to 3 cycles for you to be able to get the results that you want. If you came to me and you're like, I just want to work with you for a month, I'm going to be doing a disservice to you because you're not going to get the results that you want in one cycle. Like you might see a slight improvement, but to really get the results you want, we need like 3 months.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good deal. So tell us where we find you.
Yep. So I am at balancebombshells.com. So that's my website. And so that has the free Hormones 101 Masterclass from what you were talking about for women who want to understand their cycle. That's like our most sought after class too. Like, it's just amazing. People will find that on like Instagram and Pinterest. Like, where are you women coming from? But I'm also at Balance Bombshells on Instagram and Facebook. So those are like my social media channels and website.
All right, here's a few takeaways. Number 1, food is a huge component in how we feel, especially around your hormones. Number 2, don't just blindly listen to your doctors. Do your own research as well. Number 3, consider what you're eating and do some research on how it affects you. Your symptoms could be coming from what you eat. Number 4, a woman's hormones reset every cycle. A man's reset every day. Number 5, your cycle is made up of 4 different phases: menstrual, follicular, ovulation, and luteal. Number 6, it takes a full cycle for your body to change and for you to see changes like weight loss. Number 7, you can get rid of menstrual cramps with exercise and eating a few simple things. It's all about blood flow. Number 8, use an app to help you keep track of your cycle. Laura and I recommend an app called Clue. Number 9, cycle syncing will feel different if you're taking birth control. You won't feel it as much. Okay, so I promised I'd tell you about my experience with cycle syncing. As I mentioned in the interview, I have endometriosis, so I experience a lot of pain with my period. This month is actually the first month that I've done this, so I still have a long ways to go, but I wanted to try it out. I will literally try anything that will help with the pain and with the cramps and with all of the mess that comes with that. So I went to Whole Foods and I got some beet juice because the thought of a beet smoothie just made me cringe. I hate beets more than anything. And so I bought the beet juice, and that was the worst possible decision in the whole entire world because not only was it $8 for this little bottle of it, but it was so nasty. It was like drinking dirt, honestly. It was terrible. So don't do that. It's completely awful. It's totally terrible. But I noticed that it made such a huge difference that honestly, I would drink it. Even though it tastes like dirt, I would totally drink it. I would drink it for 3 or 4 days every single month if it would help as much as it did. I usually take so much Advil that honestly it's really dangerous. But this time it was completely different. It was like I didn't hardly have any pain at all. It was totally and completely weird for me, honestly, because normally, like I said, it's like one Advil after another all day long for at least 3 days, sometimes longer. So I was completely impressed with the beet juice. I also went for a walk a couple of days, a couple of the worst days, when usually I'm like almost curled up in bed and trying not to move because it hurts so much. But I was able to take a walk a couple of days because I know that Laura said that would help a lot. And it really did. It helped an awful lot. So between the beet juice, and I did end up making a beet smoothie as well. So it could be a combination of the beet juice and the beet smoothie and then walking. Just doing those 3 simple things, it helped so much. So I'm positive that when I'm able to implement all of the other things that she's talking about as well, that it'll just be a huge change. I was even texting her on like the 3rd day going, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually excited for the next time I get my period just because of this. I want to see if it gets better. I want to see I want to see a change. I've never been excited for this before. It's always been one of those things that have been like, oh God, not this week. I don't want to do this. um, but I'm excited. It's really made a huge difference for me. If it's something that you struggle with, I would definitely recommend checking it out. There is a link for her free masterclass in the show notes, and you should check it out. It doesn't take very long. I went through it maybe an hour and a half, something like that. And she explains a lot of what we talked about in the interview, but she explains it a lot more in depth as well. There are so many resources that she has, especially if you sign up for her email list, which you can do from her website and then from the class as well. It makes such a huge difference, honestly. I can't say enough about it. All right. Well, that's all that we have for today. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. Please make sure that you subscribe wherever you listen. Make sure that you go watch the videos on YouTube. If you haven't, you can watch the full interview at youtube.com/thequietonspodcast. And you can also find some bonus videos from this podcast and other interviews that I've done as well at youtube.com/infjwoman. And make sure that you leave a review wherever you listen, or a comment on the YouTube videos. I love reading your comments, and I try really hard to respond to each one of them. So thank you again for listening, and we'll see you again next week.